Hello and welcome to the LB Review podcast, a new series on the channel which will be centred around Scottish football. As you may see, I'm joined by two new co-hosts today who are going to help me out with this new project. First of all, we have Ben. How you doing, mate?
I'm fine. I'm Ben. I'm a Falkirk fan, sadly.
And we also have Lewis. How you doing, mate?
I'm alright, Logan. I'm Lewis, Dunfermline fan.
That's great. For this episode, we're going to be discussing our 26-man Euro squads for Scotland going into the Euros in the summer. First of all, Ben, what's your predictions for Scotland in the Euros?
Realistically, I think it's going to be a third place, but hoping for that second push above England, Croatia to top the group probably.
Do you think we'll get a result at Wembley, or?
I definitely think go down, get a nice wee 2-2 draw, show them what the best team's like here.
I think we've got to get a result against Czech Republic to go through. Would you say that's right, Lewis?
I totally agree with that. I think if we don't beat them, we'll struggle to get through.
So we've all picked our 26-man squads individually. A few controversial picks, no doubt, in there. First of all, we'll start with our goalkeepers. Ben, who have you picked as your three goalkeepers?
I've got David Marshall, Craig Gordon, and John McLaughlin.
And Lewis, who have you picked?
Mine's is the same as Ben, apart from I've dropped McLaughlin and gone with Zander Clark.
Well, I've also dropped McLaughlin, but I've went for Alan McGregor. I don't think. I hope he goes. I don't know if he will, but I don't think he'll go there now. But if it was my choice, I'd want him to go personally because he's been on top form this season. What out of the three goalkeepers that you picked, is David Marshall the starter for you?
Definitely. He's took us this far, so.
Is specifically after the Serbia and Israel performance, or just in general?
I think he's a leader on the pitch, to be honest with you, as well. Probably one of the main characters in the squad, so.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Craig Gordon's also up there for a shout to push him for a place, so.
Yeah, definitely.
I think McLaughlin's not been playing regularly, so I think Zander Clark Zander Clark would be a better option because he's obviously had match experience as well. Moving on to the defenders, obviously we've been playing a 3-5-2 recently with three central defenders and two wing backs. Can you see us, Lois? Can you see us playing three, or do you think we'll play a 4 at the back of the Euros?
I think he'll stick with a 3. It's worked for us recently, so I don't see any reason to change it.
Ben, do you agree with that? Yeah.
I totally agree. I think tactically it probably suits us best for the type of players we've got, and it allows players to play the role we want to. So,
as for the defenders you have picked, what defenders have you chosen in your squad? Lewis, you start first.
Well, for me, I've sort of picked 2 right backs. I've gone with O'Donnell and Nathan Patterson. Just think O'Donnell's had a decent season at Motherwell, and there's no really anybody else to sort of back him up apart from Nathan Patterson, who looks like next year will be his breakthrough season properly, although he's had a few games this year, and next year will be a big season for him. So I think the Euros would do him the world of good.
So carry on.
And then at centre half, I've gone with Declan Gallagher. Obviously, just got his move to Aberdeen last week. Deserves it. He's been good playing for us. I've also gone with Jack Hendry. Had a good season while being out on loan. Considine, just because he's Andy Considine. And Grant Hanley. Now, it was a tough one between Hanley, Porteous and McKenna. But I just think Hanley's had sort of a brick wall season with Norwich, getting them back to the Prem. So I think he deserves it over Porteous and McKenna. And then obviously 2 left backs, Tierney and Robertson.
Mine is more or less the same. I think I've included Scott McKenna in my squad, as well as Liam Cooper. I don't know if you said him. Did you see Liam Cooper?
No, Cooper.
I put Liam Cooper in my squad. I had Tierney, Robertson, Cooper, Declan Gallagher, Stephen O'Donnell, Nathan Patterson, Jack Hendry, Scott McKenna, Andy Considine, and Grant Hanley. Ben, was yours more or less the same, or was there any change?
I've Kieran Tierney, Robertson, O'Donnell, Patterson to back him up. Went with Liam Cooper, Grant Hanley, Declan Gallagher, and Jack Hendry.
Do you think,
So-
obviously, Palmer was in the right back situation for a bit? Obviously, O'Donnell's been starting, playing well for Scotland. Who do you think will start at right back out of the two if they were to take Nathan Patterson?
I think at the Euros, I think you've got to go with O'Donnell just for his experience.
Definitely. He's
And
not put a
then-
foot wrong for Scotland, so
Exactly. And if we get to the stage, say we crash out the group after 2 games, which hopefully not, play Patterson in that third game. Just give him the experience to go and play and show what he's got.
definitely.
Do you play, obviously, Tierney and Robertson, two world-class players? They've obviously been playing Tierney at left central defence. Do you think Steve Clark should stick with that? Ben?
I think he's gonna. I think he should as well. Obviously, Tierney probably our best centre half on form, but if we're to change it, we had to pick one to go right back. I'd stick with Tierney. I put Tierney left back as well. I think Robertson's just not giving enough for Scotland, and Tierney getting down that line and getting the balls in the box is going to help us. So
Another argument that a lot of people are having is whether McTominay should start in defence or midfield. Lewis, do you think McTominay's well suited in central defence for Scotland, or do you think he'll be better utilised in midfield?
I think for the way we play with Scotland, McTominay's no really put a foot wrong when playing at centre back, because he seems, as we attack, he pushes forward as well, and it just suits him the way he plays. So I think we stick with him as a sort of right-sided centre back.
Obviously, Ryan Jack's a big miss in the midfield for the Scotland squad. Obviously, Scott McTominay's experience in that position. Do you think he could possibly fill in and do as well a job as he has done in the past few Scotland games? Well, Ben?
definitely. Well, Scott McTominay's probably the best, and if not the best centre mid we've got at Scotland, I'd say. I think in his role the way he plays at Man United, it just proves it, and he's starting to get a bit more confidence on the Scotland pitch as well. So.
Speaking of Ryan Jack, he's obviously going to be out of the Euros. There's obviously a bit of question about Kenny McLean yesterday picking up an injury. Obviously, he's more of a squad player, but it gives more chance for younger players like Lewis Ferguson, Ryan Gaul, David Turnbull to try and get in the squad. Out of the youngsters in the team, who would you take in your midfield, Lewis? Who have you chosen?
Well, I've actually gone for Turnbull and Ryan Gold.
Right.
And they've both been very good this season when they've came in. Obviously, Turnbull's had his chance at Celtic, maybe not been the best season for them, but he's every time I've watched him, he's been standout. And I've not really seen a lot of Ryan Gold this year, but I've heard a lot of good things about him out in Portugal. So hopefully Clark picks him as well.
Ben, who have you went for in your midfield?
Well, out of young players, I've got Gold in there. I've put in Turnbull, and I've got Billy Gilmour as well. Even though Gilmour's not really played a lot this season, I think we need to get him in there. It's someone that's going to be probably captain in the future. And even against Man City, with the way he played, he's already becoming a top class player. So
I think I added a couple more defenders and midfielders, so I went for obviously Scott McTominay, Kenny McLean if he's fit, John McGinn, Ryan Christie, Callum McGregor, Billy Gilmour, Stuart Armstrong, David Turnbull, and then I went for James Forrest. Although Forrest hasn't played that much this season, just getting back to full fitness, I think he's too much of an important player for Scotland to miss out. As for Billy Gilmour, Lewis, played yesterday against Man City, played quite well in the midfield. What do you make of Billy Gilmour, and do you think he should start in that midfield of the Euros, or do you think he'll be more of a squad?
I don't think he should start in the Euros, but I do think he should be in the squad because he's, like Ben says, a lot of potential. Could potentially be our future captain. So I totally agree that he should be in the squad. Get game time, ease him in. Especially like the 2 friendlies before against the Netherlands and Luxembourg. Perfect time to give him a chance to prove himself.
As for you, Ben, do you think Billy Gilmour's proven himself that much to get in the Euro squad?
Definitely to get in the squad. I wouldn't say starting, but if we've got time to give him a game in that and stuff, he definitely deserves it. So one of the young players that's broke through into the scene also at a top end club, and he can go all the way. So
as I said, I picked Forrest in my squad. Do you think that Forrest will go to the Euros, Lewis, in your opinion, or do you think that Steve Clark, due to Forrest not playing many games, do you think he'll not pick him in the squad?
I don't think he'll take Forrest, just purely because he has been injured. And sort of the system we play, where they stick Forrest in that sort of system, it's tough to put him into it without changing it because we don't play the wingers.
That is true. Yeah, I suppose. Because, well, obviously we've got the wing backs, and Forrest will probably get wasted at right wing back because he's more of a threat going forward than at wing back, because we've got players like O'Donnell and Patterson, like we said before, that can fill in there. But I think if he takes Forrest, he'll have to change system for him, because I don't think he'll play up front, and he'll have to play in a probably wide position that suits him better.
I agree with that.
Well, I've got Forrest in my squad, but I don't think he should start based off obviously not having loads of game time. But if he does get used, the 40 back will have to be the only option you go for and play him out wide right.
I think you'd have to, but then you've also got I've chosen Fraser in my squad who can also play out wide. So if we did go to like a 4-4-2, if the 3-5-2 didn't work, then I think that would be a reasonable decision. Obviously, the defence with Tierney and Robertson, you'd have to play probably one central defender beside Tierney in defence. So moving on to the attackers, I know we've all got our opinions on certain attackers in the Scotland squad at the moment. I've went for Lyndon Dykes, Shea Adams, Ryan Fraser, and Kevin Nisbet to go to the Euros. That might be a bit biased, but I think obviously Shea Adams speaks for himself. Quality Premier League striker. Already scored for Scotland, and I think he'll be pivotal to what we do in the Euros. Lyndon Dykes done very well for Scotland so far. Scored a few goals. Also hit a bit of form with QPR recently. Ryan Fraser playing in the Premier League week in, week out again. Also done reasonably well for Scotland recently. And then Nisbet, he's been scoring goals for fun in recent years. Obviously, there's a bit of debate, which we'll get to, with him or another striker in the Scottish Premiership. But I think Nisbet, if he's given the chance, well, I don't think he'll start. I think they'll start with Dykes and Adams up front. But I think Nisbet's got the quality to come off the bench and make an impact. Lewis, who do you pick as your attackers?
I've gone with the same as you, apart from I put Fraser down as a midfielder to include Griffiths. Just because Griffiths he's just a natural goal scorer, isn't he? Just gives us that threat.
That was one of the things I'd pointed out. Obviously, I said that I'd risk Forrest, but it's a similar situation with Griffiths. You know, he's getting back to full fitness. Maybe not. Maybe it took him longer than it should have. But obviously, Griffith, you know the quality that Lee Griffiths has. Obviously, he scored the 2 free kicks against England. I don't think anyone will ever forget them. Obviously, he's a quality striker, scores goals for fun. Ben, have you taken Griffiths in your attackers?
Yeah, I've took Griffiths. I think just on his quality, and even if he can get a half fitness, if he ends up going and gets minutes, it's massive for his career as well, to be fair. See if he either stays at Celtic or ends up getting a move to somewhere else. But I think the quality he's got, we've not got another attacker like that in the squad, so it brings something different. So,
Going back to the midfield, as for if they were to start a midfield three, what would your midfield three be, Lewis?
For me, obviously McTominay, I've got him down as a midfielder, but he probably will play at centre half. But I think I'd go with McGinn, McGregor, and Stuart Armstrong.
Ben, what's your midfield three?
I'd have McTominay in there with John McGinn and probably Stuart Armstrong, but I feel like either McGregor or Turnbull can get a role in there as well, to be fair, if they push for it.
I think they'll start with obviously McGinn. I think Ryan Jack's a massive miss, because I think he did well in his games for Scotland recently. And the role he plays for Rangers and for Scotland is crucial. So I think I'd have a midfield three, and McGinn with him pushing forward a wee bit, McTominay and the last one, McGregor, probably would be the three. Moving on, would you start Dykes and Adams up front, Ben?
A 3-5-2 with Dykes and Adams top, because for my forwards I've got Adams, Dykes, Griffiths, Fraser, and as much as I didn't want to put him in because Hughes done firmly a lot or obsessed him when he's not even that used anymore, but that Kevin is but second top goal scorer in the Premiership with 14 goals to his name. You have to take him. If it was anyone else, you'd be taking him. So
obviously Shankland, as I mentioned before, it was a shout. He was been in previous squads, maybe not scored as much goals as previous seasons, but you can still see the qualities there when playing for Dundee United, can you, Liz?
Yeah, totally agree. It was a tough decision between Shankland and Griffiths. But I just think with Shankland only been in, say, 2 or 3 squads, only had like 3 caps max, I think Griffiths is the right player to take over him just because he's got that international experience in big games against teams like England. So that's why I've chosen Griffiths over him.
As for players such as Billy Gilmore, Ryan Gould, David Turnbull, Ben, do you think they're the future of the Scotland squad, as well as players like Lewis Ferguson and Ross McCrory?
Definitely. I think same again, the midfield in the future is just going to be loads of quality players battling for their spots again, but it's just try to get the right factor of which players play in which positions and what roles are best at. But I feel like Gould's he's seen in Portugal. I think he needs to try and get a move somewhere else back over to UK to really prove himself again and let fans kind of understand his role more and the way he plays.
He obviously had that Ryan Gould, that loan spell at Hibs. Don't think it quite worked out for him, but this season he's been on top form in Portugal. So, Lewis, do you agree with Ben there?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, obviously, like he says, he came back to Hibs. It didn't really work out. And the best thing for him is to try and get a move back to the UK, whether, even if it's dropping into the Championship in England for a year, to try and prove himself, get himself minutes in a competitive league like the Championship, maybe bottom half of the Premiership, to prove himself. I think it's probably the best decision he could make at this moment in his career.
As for the role that John McGinn plays in the game, Ben, would you have him further forward or would you have him sitting deeper?
It's a difficult one because it depends who you've got in next to him. So McTominay's in there, but if you have Armstrong, you have McGuinness doing your box to box because he'll get up and he can do your attacking job as well as defensive job. But if you play Cal McGregor in there, getting up a further forward, he's just going to be vital for Scotland. You've seen it where he's getting his goals, his wee sexy overhead kick and that. It's really going to help Scotland. We'll try improve the goal situation. So,
Liz, do you agree with Ben by saying
yeah,
McGinn?
Totally. It's a great point he's made there. Obviously, McGinn's been vital for us. Top goal scorer under Steve Clarke. I reckon if he can play further forward in the Euros, it's the best option for us to play just behind the 2 strikers because he will get goals. Another
player who's started most games for Scotland recently, but maybe not been on the best club form, is Ryan Christie. He's been starting up front with Lyndon Dykes a few games before Shea Adams came in. Ben, how big a role do you think Ryan Christie will play in this Euro squad?
I think, to be honest, I think Christie will get his starts. For Scotland, he deserves an all for Celtic. Celtic haven't done the best this season, but every time he puts a Scotland strip on, he gives 100%. And even though he blasts his shots 100 metres in the air, he takes 20 shots, he'll score 2 at least. So at least getting the goals, he's one of the reasons we've got through to the Euros as well. So
I think the goal against Serbia massively helped him because you could see he was passionate about obviously Scotland, and he was a key player that game. Right, so another player that was key in that Serbia game was Declan Gallagher, and he pocketed Mitrovic the whole 120 minutes of that game. Do you think he'll play a pivotal role in the Euros, Liz?
100%. He'll be that starting centre back that plays next to Tierney, and either another centre back or McTominay. And he's just, like I says earlier, he got his move to Aberdeen during the week, which was totally deserved because he's played well in a struggling Motherwell team, from what I've heard. And every time he puts that Scotland strip on, he just seems to defend for his life.
Obviously, as you mentioned earlier, he got his move to Aberdeen, which was, in my opinion, fairly deserved after his Scotland form. Obviously, you said there that his Motherwell form is probably, Motherwell's probably underachieved this season a wee bit. But another central defender that's performed well abroad is Jack Hendry, who came back into the squad for the last campaign. Ben, do you think he'll start in the Euros, or do you think Declan Gallagher will play more of a role?
I don't think he'll start, but I do think Gallagher will be ahead of him. But he's a young boy, and also it didn't work out a few seasons for Celtic. That's why he's went out on loan. But playing for a team that's top of the Belgian league and doing quality, he's got to be in there. He's got the passion. He will make a few mistakes, but I feel let him play in the friendlies if need be after the Euros or something. Let him build his confidence up. But right now, I think he'll have to just be a squad player.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think that Liam Cooper has got to be a key starter in the team. I think playing for Leeds, obviously Leeds captain, playing Premier League week in, week out. Declan Gallagher's obviously played well in the Scotland shirt, but I think Liam Cooper, with the quality that he has, playing alongside the Leeds team, I think that him, Tierney, and then either McTominay or Declan Gallagher will start in defence. I don't think McKenna will start, or Constantine. I think they're just taking Constantine for the yes sir I can boogie stuff. But obviously Constantine thoroughly deserved his call up, because you can't just get there over a song, can you, Lewis?
Exactly.
No, he can get in because of something. I've not put him on my squad, but if he goes down, I will only be disappointed. Get him in the wee mini skirt and that. Get him out Trafalgar Square. We'll be loving life
when we win the Euros.
Hopefully. So as for the folk that have not gotten, or the players that have not got in the squad, there's a few players that have been in previous squads that are not probably going to go to the Euros. There's players like John Fleck, Ollie Burke. Some of you have not put Scott McKenna in your squads. Ben, is there any other honourable mentions you can think of?
Yeah, well, I've got Dune Shankland, but Leon Palmer, obviously, Fleck, McKenna. So you've got like McBurney. A lot of folk hate him, but I feel bad for the boy, to be honest with you. Getting his injury and that, he probably would have got called up. Could have scored a winner at Wembley, but it's just sad it's not going to happen this time.
Wes, is there any other names that you've got down?
One name for me, Ryan Porteous. He's been solid at Hibs this year, and he probably does deserve a chance to go to the Euros, but he's just a little bit too young still for me. When you've got players like Hanley, Constantine, Hendry, and Declan Gallagher.
Talking about young players, young Hibs players, sorry. Josh Doig getting Scottish Young Player of the Year.
Yep.
I feel like if it wasn't for Scotland having Andy Robertson and Tierney, he would have been called up over even Patterson if he could play right back, just like Hickey was. But it's just a shame that Tierney's ahead.
There's another name, Hickey, playing in the Serie A for Bologna. There's also Ryan Porteous. I think maybe with a few more years at Hibs, or if he gets his move to the Championship in England, then he'll maybe get in future squads. He's obviously been in the squad before, but I think he'll be a regular in the squads. Also, at St Johnstone, Jason Kerr.
Yeah, that's what I say that.
Linked with a move to Hibs this week. And I think he's been solid all season as well. Another St Johnstone player, Sean Rooney, who was in the shouting as well, at right back.
It was between him and Patterson for me.
Between him and Patterson?
Yeah.
So Palmer wasn't even in the discussion?
Nah, Palmer's out that discussion a long time ago.
Well, Rooney, he scored in the League Cup final, won St Johnstone the League Cup, and he's been in top form this season. Obviously, he was at clubs like Queen of the South, Inverness and Fairmont before, and maybe didn't hit the heights, but ever since he's went at Inverness and St Johnstone, he's been a really good player. Any other honourable mentions that you've got, Les?
Craig Whiting, he's been fantastic for Dunfermline. I just think him and his big bald head should be in that Euro squad ahead of the likes of Dykes.
Just a shame Connor Salmon isn't Scottish, fastest player in Scottish football.
I mean, Connor Salmon probably would have. I mean, Lyndon Dykes, Connor
he
Salmon.
Gets a man of the match. He'll get a man of the match. He's had his pizza. What else has he had?
The photo at Wembley just with his pizza.
He's photo Andrew. Oh, what a guy!
I reckon
Ben-
Paul Slane will be in Steve Clark's head. He'll be wanting on that plane down to the Euros, even though half them are in
He's
Glasgow.
know who Paul Slane. He'll be on his biggie bus.
That's true.
Aye,
He's
that's
on his
true.
way down. He doesn't need planes. He
Gary
likes
Holt
fancy
driving
suit.
it. Gary Holt driving
Gary
it as
Holt.
well.
Oh, didn't mention
Aye.
Gary Holt right now. No until I came on about that situation.
What's wrong with Gary Holt, Ben?
I'll tell you know behind like backstories of it, but taking over at Falkirk obviously for the last few games.
Wait, he's taking over at Falkirk?
No, he took over. Because he's
What,
director
like
of football.
permanently?
No, permanent.
Oh,
He
right.
took over at his interim.
Yeah.
Because he's director of football and that, but he took over for interim for a few games and it just didn't work out. There's one game the players looked like they're passionate. It was the first game he was in charge against Cobble, got a 2-0 draw, but I feel like him going back to his director of football role, looking for a new manager to come in that will get us back up, was probably the best thing they can do.
As for the candidates now, Ben, who do you want to get the job? Who do you think will get the job?
Yeah, Grant's up there in the bookies and that. I don't know much about him. Apparently, Alloa fans apparently loved him, but it wasn't able to work out when he got relegated. Also, Neil McCann's been linked, but I just want someone in that's going to be able to build a squad and get the squad ready to just push up and then push again in the Championship to at least fight for playoffs straight away instead of sitting about lurking in League One.
I think Neil McCann would be a good option because obviously he had his bad spell at Dundee. Didn't work out for him at all. He got them relegated. But at Inverness, their season form since he came in was just they're pushing for players for Dunfermline. They were a really decent side, a really hard team to play against. Obviously filling in for John Robertson. I think John Robertson will go back to that job. But Neil McCann, I think he deserves a job, maybe in the Championship or in League One. But Falkirk, I think Falkirk need an experienced manager who knows League One, who knows
Definitely.
players in Scottish football, knows a tactic that will get them out of League One back into the Championship, because Falkirk shouldn't be in League One. Neither should Partick. Obviously, they won the league, but it's obviously going to be harder next season as well with Alloa coming down, possibly Morton, and then Queen's Park coming.
Morton, they deserve to be down. So, honestly, that home fans are, I'm sorry to say it, but a bit mutants.
After this, go watch the Montrose goal yesterday. I think it was Russell McLean that scored it. The defender.
Let's see that now. I'll give it a watch.
The first time on my Saturday, actually, I enjoyed my Saturday. Instead of sitting watching Falkirk get your pumped or draw, it was such a delightful day.
Yeah, I think Partick Thistle made the right appointment with McCall. Obviously, he made them when he was in the Championship, but McCall was won League One with Ayr before. He knows that league. He knows the players. He brought in a few experienced heads in January and in March as well on loan, like Stephen Bell, Andy Geoghegan, who have been there and done that in League One. And obviously, Falkirk were ahead in the league. Maybe do you think that the signings in the Falkirk made in January were just not good enough, Ben?
Well, since when we came back, was obviously signed a few Fotheringham and Nielsen from Dundee United too. Fotheringham being at Falkirk's academy, and he's a decent player, but he did do well a few games went missing. But Lewis Nielsen, he's one player that I think he could go far in playing the game. He's been Falkirk's best player since he came in, and he's solid at centre half or right back. He's only 17. It was very impressive watching him play that well.
Yeah.
As for Dunfermline, we've watched week in, week out all season. I've missed a few games, but I think we've both watched a reasonable amount of games.
Aye.
What would you make of the season overall?
First half of the season, you couldn't really fault us. We were unreal. At home especially, we were just tearing teams apart. And then January hit, brought in a few players, let a few go. Kyle Turner, probably our best player in the first half of the season. I think it was probably one of the most stupidest transfers we could have made, even if him and Crawford having fallen out or whatever. But it looks like he'll be off now for next season with his contract going. But the second half just wasn't good enough. Far too many mediocre performances. Too many boys just not good enough. And then yesterday, the amount of chances we had, game should have been done. in the first leg?
I think I didn't watch the game yesterday, the second leg against Raith Rovers. But I think we made a few good signings in January. Obviously, Craig Whiting came in on a pre-contract, but also on loan. But I just don't think the away form killed us completely. Home form was exceptional. Rare defeats here and there, but only one away win in the league against Alloa. It's just not good enough for a team that's fighting for promotion to the Premiership. And I think we brought in the Lithuanian defender Vitas. I'm not even going to try pronounce his second name, but
Spitas.
that's it. But I think the likes of Ewan Henderson came in, and I think it was maybe March time as well. But it's just since the turn of the year, it's not been good enough.
Talking about signings for Dunfermline, I know obviously some fans were a bit controversial about it, but when Kevin O'Hara signed for years, do you think he's either done enough or showed enough passion to make fans believe the passes in the past, or do you think fans are still going to hate him?
At first, obviously, the move wasn't the best for fans, but I think since he's came in, scored a few goals this year, worked his way into the team, wasn't getting in sort of middle part of the season, got back into it recently, proved himself. I think he's won most of the fans over with the season he's had, personally.
Yeah, I think his late form season, he scored a few goals lately. I thought at the start of the season, his touch wasn't maybe up to standard, is what I thought. Like, obviously, McManus was scoring goals. He scored a hat-trick against Alloa, and I thought he would kick on from there, and maybe slowed down a wee bit, but the last few games he's been very good. The game against Arbroath, he would put in a good performance. I think Craig Whiting will be key next season to scoring goals in that team, because I think we just needed a clinical edge up front in some games, and I think he'll provide that. Same with O'Hara and McManus. I think if McManus stays, I think he'll be pivotal as well with O'Hara. But I think if Whiting hits top form, we could be pushing the playoffs again. But we do need a few additions. I don't think Whittaker's been key this season. I don't think he'll be here next season unless he signs a new deal. I think he'll probably hang up his boots because he's had a long and very successful career. And sometimes when you're needing him in the 70th, 75th minute, he's sometimes not there because he's putting a shift for 70 minutes. And then the likes of the loan deals all going back. We'll need to see what's happening with them and then the signings in the summer. So obviously they've got a lot of loan players now. But what are you saying?
That's one problem for us this year is loan signings. Far too many. I
think the likes of Comrie needs to stay. I know he's just signed a new deal a few months ago, but he was key this season. And the likes of Fraser Murray, who I thought would be a key starter in the team. He's been on the bench in most weeks. I thought he'd be a key player going forward for us. But the likes of Lewis Mayo starting in midfield. Ben, you know my opinion. You both know my opinions on that. I think he's more suited at central defence, but I think we've got Ewan Murray and Paul Watson and Vitas still now, so I don't think he'll be back. But it's all about rebuilding in the summer and going again. Same with Falkirk.
Talking about Mayo being in the midfield, do you think Crawford's time's up with his controversial decisions, or do you think he's going to stay and he's wanting to stay? Or
I think obviously goal this year was playoffs. We've got that. We've obviously not progressed like what we would have hoped. But I think next year will be his last chance. If we don't get out the league next year, I think his time's up and we bring in a manager like Stuart Petrie or something. Somebody with a bit more experience.
So yesterday I was at the Kelty Hearts versus Brora Rangers match in the Pyramid Playoff second leg to see who would be facing Brecon in the final. Kelty won the first leg 2-0. Goals from Callum Higginbottom and Dylan Easton. Higginbottom and Austin missed penalties in that game. And then the second leg yesterday, Brora went 1-0 up, which was a bit of a downer on the 2-0 victory as they got a goal back early on, but then Nathan Austin quickly replied with a equaliser and then put the 2-goal advantage back in place. Then he got 2 more goals to seal his hat-trick, and Dylan Easton got the 4th to secure the victory and get to put them through at the final to play at Brecon. Lewis, have you seen much of Kelty this season, and do you think they'll beat Brecon, and do you think they'll have enough to beat them?
I've actually not seen any of Kelty this year, but I reckon from what I've heard, seen on Twitter, I reckon they'll steamroll Brecon, because Brecon are absolutely woeful. Sorry to any Brecon fans watching, but it's only very good.
Yeah,
so
I
think
they've been unlucky this season.
Kelty will walk all over them.
Yeah, I think Kelty have too much quality in their squad. Dylan Easton's been on top form recently the last 2 games, and obviously Nathan Austin with a hat-trick on Saturday. So Ben, do you agree with Lewis? Do you think that Kelty would just have too much of Brecon in the day?
I think the quality Kelty have got, obviously Tidser, Higginbottom, Nathan Austin. I think it's going to be too much of Brecon to handle unless Brecon pull out an absolute blinder from somewhere. And it's just we've got a few good players in there. Maybe a past their day, but it's just nowhere near good enough. So I think Kelty will win the game comfortably.
I think with the system that Kelty play, obviously I've watched them most games this season. I think that Tidser and Riley dominate the midfield when then they've got the outlets of Austin, Higginbottom and Easton. So I think they'll comfortably win the tie. If it's comfortably over 2 legs, or maybe if they wrap up after the first, I think they'll get through and then they'll get into the SPFL. As for in future years, if Kelty do come up list, how far do you think they can go as a club?
I reckon they can make it right to the top. Why not be ambitious? With the players they've got, they'd survive in League One this year. With the team they have, they've got obviously Higginbottom, Nathan Austin, a lot of quality in their side. I reckon a couple more signings like that next year, and they're up there to steamroll League Two.
Yeah, I think they've got a lot of experience in the squad with obviously Tidser. They've also got Dougie Howe at the back, who's been pivotal. They've got Jamie Stevenson at right back, who's been superb, scored a few goals as well, but that's not even his natural position. As for speaking of the Lowland League, there's been talk of the Colts teams getting introduced into the Lowland League. Ben, what do you make of that?
I think it's just it kind of ruins the whole point of young players going out on loan and getting first team experience and stuff, and put them in that league. We're probably going to easily win that league, or you'll have grown men just kicking lumps out of them on purpose because they didn't want them. But I feel like either you improve the Colt teams are even reserve leagues, or you're still not allowed it to happen.
Obviously, it's been said that it's only going to be a 1-year arrangement, but I think it'll be more than that. I think they've guaranteed with the money that's involved with it that it'll probably be more than that if it goes ahead. I think they're saying that there's one over 20 player and it's a goalkeeper or something like that. I'm not sure, but I think the Lowland League are voting in it in the next few days for it, but I don't agree with it either. What do you think of it, Liz?
Personally, I don't agree with it either, because you look at half the players that play in, say, Rangers and Celtic Colt teams, a lot of them are on loan at Championship and League One clubs, so it's pointless in them going down and playing in the Lowland League. Fair enough, it's a bit of experience against grown men, but when you're able to go and get League One football, I think they know themselves what they'd rather be playing, and it's a bit unfair on teams like Hibs and Hearts, who have relatively good Colt teams, probably better than Celtic and Rangers, and the fact they've not been offered the opportunity to go and play in that league as well.
I think with the likes of the Caramel Waver Cup, the Ramsden's Cup, whatever you want to call it, I think with the Colts teams in there, you can see that people are losing interest in that, because we got a tie like Falkirk versus the Celtic reserves a few years ago, and Celtic reserves competed quite well with Falkirk, and if they were to be in the Lowland League, they'd probably do reasonably well, because you've also got the likes of East Kilbride, Bonnyrigg, who are strong sides, same with BSC. You've got teams competing at the top, and if their teams are in there, then I just don't know. I don't agree with it at all.
Well, I've watched also Falkirk play against both Colt teams. We played against
Yes, we
Celtic
have.
at Falkirk Stadium, and it went to penalties and Falkirk had gone through. But you had like Luke O'Connell and stuff, and they're just dominating on the ball, and it showed that they should be playing at a higher level. And against Rangers, Falkirk ran out 2-1 winners at Stirling's ground, and it just you had players like that. Umar Sadiq, who's now valued at a lot of money. He ended up in a clean shot and goal, and he probably would have scored it, but he dived to try and get a penalty. It's just stupid stuff like that. But you had so many young players that they had potential, and they tried to prove on the pitch against a big club, and putting them into a lower league's just not going to help them for the potential.
Like as Lewis said, you've got the likes of the Rangers and Celtic boys in the Championship. You've got obviously Lewis Mayo at Dunfermline, Ewan Henderson at Dunfermline, Kai Kennedy at Raith Rovers. That's just a few. Dapo Bamidi at Queen of the South. I just don't think if there's going to be a thing for a few years to come, I don't think it's going to work out, because I think maybe it'll gain more income for some of the teams in the Lowland League, but I just don't think it's a good idea at all.
What have they for? What have they got to play for? Are they going to get? Are they allowed to get promoted into the football leagues? So if not, then the players are just going to be sitting playing for nothing.
I think it's just to give the players more experience. I think the reserve league hasn't really. It's not kicked off this season. I don't think. Oh, I think the under-18s league maybe has, but the reserves league hasn't. And I think the reserves league from a few years ago has changed from what it is now. I think it used to be more competitive a few years ago. From stories I've heard about first team players, maybe who have just come back from injury, going into that. As for the Colts teams in the Lowland League, I don't think that'll happen. But it gives the Rangers and Celtic players more experience. But I think.
Well,
what are you gonna say?
I was going to say, well, with Rangers and Celtic obviously pushing for their Colts teams to get in, the whole talk about reconstruction happening again, Brecon trying to push for it, Cowden Beef probably wanting it as well. Because these teams are threatening on that, they're going to get overtaken from the Lowland League teams. But I think depending on if they were to go for it and how, obviously, the structure of the leagues, it could benefit a lot of clubs. It could benefit Arnold for Falkirk. They deserve right now, the way they've been handling that, the fans don't deserve it, but the club deserve to be in League One. But really, they're a Championship club pushing towards Premiership. And it's something that really needs to get looked into, maybe.
Right, so we'll wrap it up there, guys. Thanks for joining me for the first episode. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully we'll do another one soon. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Obviously it's our first one, so we'll only get better at doing it if we do it more regularly. So this has been the first episode of the LB Review podcast, and we'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Cheers.